don't fall in love. They collapse into it. One smile, one conversation, one passing moment of attention, and suddenly it feels like fate, as if the universe whispered, "There they are, the one." But Alan Watts would have told you, this isn't love. It's longing dressed as love. It's the echo of an unloved past trying to write a better future too quickly. Because when you haven't been deeply seen, the first person who notices your depth feels like destiny. And when you haven't been chosen, even a little warmth feels like a fire you must keep alive at all costs. This isn't foolishness. It's psychology. Let's go deeper. The hunger behind the heart. Falling fast isn't about recklessness. It's about starvation. Emotional starvation. Alan Watts once described love not as something you fall into, but something you dissolve into, when your identity is fluid enough to merge with the other. But what happens when that identity was never whole to begin with? When someone feels empty inside, love becomes a drug, a soothing balm, a mission. They don't want to fall. They want to be caught. Because deep inside, they're not really searching for a partner. They're searching for a rescuer, a father they never had, a mother who never embraced them, a friend who never left. The speed isn't romance. It's panic. A desperate attempt to secure affection before it disappears. So when they text you, non-stop, fantasize about your future, or speak of forever before the second date, it's not obsession. It's emotional homelessness. They crave the comfort of belonging so badly that they wrap you in their story before even asking who you are. Why it feels so real. If you've ever fallen fast, you know how intoxicating it is. The butterflies, the music suddenly making sense, the hours that feel like minutes. It's not an act, it's real. At least to your nervous system. Because when someone shows you attention, your body remembers every time it didn't get any, every abandonment, every betrayal, every time love felt earned, not given. The brain lights up, not just from the present pleasure, but from the relief of finally being chosen. Your childhood wounds nod approvingly. This, finally, is safe. But it's not safety. It's familiarity. We confuse intensity with intimacy, drama with depth, chemistry with compatibility. Alan Watts warned, we mistake the sensation of coming alive for proof of alignment. But often, it's just your trauma waking up. You're not in love. You're in recognition. You recognize the feeling, the dynamic, the pattern. And just like that, you're hooked. The mirror of infatuation. There's a reason the people who fall fast often idealize. They see in the other not just a person, but a possibility, a dream, a future, a symbol. They project everything they want to feel onto someone who barely knows them. You understand me like no one ever has, they say. But how can they after 2 conversations? They don't. You filled in the blanks. Infatuation is rarely about who the other person is. It's about what they awaken in you. They become a mirror, reflecting back your deepest hopes, your buried pain, your unspoken longing. You don't love them. You love the version of you that shows up around them. The open, soft, loving, desired version you rarely allow yourself to be. That feeling becomes addictive, not the person, the version of yourself you believe only they can unlock. The role of fantasy. People who fall in love too fast often live more in their imagination than in reality. Not because they're naive, but because imagination was survival. When the real world hurt too much, they built a better one in their minds. So now, even as adults, the fantasy kicks in faster than facts. They see red flags and paint them white. They ignore misalignment because the storyline is too good. Alan Watts described this trap beautifully. You're not falling in love. You're falling in love with your own idea of love. You convince yourself this person completes you, because deep down, you fear you're incomplete. Why they chase so hard. Chasing someone too fast isn't always about confidence. It's often about urgency. An urgency rooted in the belief, if I don't secure this now, I'll lose everything. It's not romantic. It's survival. People who fall fast are often terrified of rejection, so they move quickly to create bonds, plans, commitments. If they can lock it in early, they can avoid the fear of being left. But here's the paradox. That same urgency often pushes the other person away. The very thing they fear, abandonment, is triggered by the very way they love. So they're left again, wondering what went wrong. The truth? They were never loved for who they were, only for how intensely they needed it. The wisdom. Alan Watts would whisper. Alan Watts believed that love is not something you achieve. It's something you allow. It arises naturally when two whole people meet and soften in each other's presence. If you fall too fast, it's not because you're broken. It's because some part of you is still healing. But healing isn't about slowing down love. It's about slowing down the fear that makes love urgent. Because true love doesn't rush. It listens. It unfolds. It breathes. Watts said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive." It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic, as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. That panic? It's what ruins most modern love. The belief that love must fix something in you, instead of reveal something already whole. But what happens when you finally meet someone genuine? That's where things get complicated. Because the same urgency that once protected you may now destroy what's real. And what you do next will define the kind of love you attract for the rest of your life. Let's go deeper. It's beautiful, isn't it? How quickly the heart can hope. How easily the soul whispers, maybe this time. But beauty can be blinding, especially when it's rooted in pain. Because the moment someone finally sees you, it doesn't just feel good. It feels redemptive. Like all the years of rejection were worth it. Like you're finally being rewarded for your suffering. And so you grip it tightly. You name it love before it's even had time to breathe. But Alan Watts warned us. Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. And in love, most people aren't loving the other. They're trying to find themselves in them. That's why it hurts so much when they leave. It's not just heartbreak. It's identity collapse. When you become the emotion, not the observer. People who fall in love too fast don't just feel emotions. They become them. They don't say, I feel attached. They say, this is the one. They don't say, I'm excited. They say, I've finally found peace. And this is where the danger hides. Because when you become the emotion, you stop observing. And when you stop observing, you stop seeing the other person clearly. You see what you want to see. You hear what your heart wants to hear. And you ignore the quiet voice that whispers, "Something's off." Alan Watts believed that suffering arises not from pain, but from attachment to illusion. And fast love is often the fastest illusion we cling to. It's not that the love isn't real. It's that the version of the person you fell for doesn't actually exist. The silent saboteur, fear of being alone. At the center of fast love is something we don't talk about enough: loneliness. Not the kind where you're physically alone, but the kind where no one understands the way you feel. Where even in a crowd, you feel invisible. Where your deepest truths echo back unanswered. So when someone finally sits across from you and listens, truly listens, it feels like rain after drought. They don't even have to be perfect. They just have to be present. And in that moment, loneliness becomes so painful to revisit that you'll do anything to avoid it. Even if it means forcing love to happen. Even if it means ignoring signs, betraying your own intuition, or rushing into someone who isn't right for you. You don't want them as much as you want the feeling they give you. And that feeling is temporary. Because if love is built on fear, it crumbles the moment fear returns. The fast track isn't real. Modern culture glorifies instant everything. Instant attraction, instant chemistry, instant soulmates. But love isn't Amazon Prime. And people who fall too fast often confuse emotional vulnerability with spiritual connection. They'll say, "I feel so close to you," when in reality, they've just shared trauma stories, back and forth in a single evening. But real closeness? It doesn't rush. It resists performance. It waits for trust to bloom. Fast love skips the soil. It plants flowers in the air. They bloom bright and fast, but they never last. Alan Watts said, "The more a thing tends to be permanent, the more it tends to be lifeless." He wasn't saying love shouldn't be committed. He was warning that when we try to force permanence, we kill spontaneity. We turn love into a goal, not a gift. How childhood shapes this pattern. Let's go back a little. Imagine being a child who never got unconditional love, where praise was earned, attention was scarce, and affection was inconsistent. What happens? You grow up thinking love is a reward, that you must prove your worth, that if someone chooses you, you better hold on tight, because they might change their mind. And when that wound goes unhealed, you carry it into adulthood and call it romance. You start falling not because you're open, but because your inner child is still begging to be held. Alan Watts described love as the dissolution of the ego. But what if your ego was built around being unwanted? Then love becomes a battlefield, a place to prove you matter. You don't seek love, you seek victory. The illusion of mutual intensity. One of the biggest traps, when both people fall too fast. It feels like magic. Two souls intertwining instantly, finishing each other's sentences, confessing feelings within days, planning futures by week 2. But intensity isn't stability. And mutual chaos doesn't equal compatibility. Sometimes It's just two unhealed people mistaking emotional volatility for passion. What feels like meant to be might just be mutually traumatized. And the crash is just as fast as the climb. Alan Watts believed that true connection comes not from perfect synchronization, but from learning to dance with each other's rhythm over time. If your love story skips that rhythm, it might not be a story, just a spark. And sparks burn out fast. The truth. Most won't tell you. The reason falling too fast hurts so much isn't because it's embarrassing or irrational. It's because you let someone touch the most tender parts of you before they earned the right to hold them. You invited someone into the temple of your soul, and they left muddy footprints. But that doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're learning. Love isn't measured by how quickly it begins, but by how gently it grows. Alan Watts said, "Things are as they are." Looking out into the universe at night, we make no comparisons between right and wrong stars, nor good and bad constellations. Maybe your speed isn't a flaw. Maybe it's a reflection of your depth. But depth needs space. And love, to be true, needs time. But what if you finally slow down and they don't stay? That's the fear, right? That if you don't fall fast, you'll lose them. That if you don't open up quickly, they'll walk away. That love must be immediate, or it won't happen at all. But maybe that's the test. To see if you can stay calm in the silence. To see if you can be whole without rushing to fill the space with someone else. Because the love that stays doesn't need to sprint. It sits with you, quietly, even when nothing is certain. And it waits for the moment you're finally ready, not to fall, but to rise with someone beside you. You think it's magic, what you feel in the first 10 minutes, that somehow the universe gave you a sign, when really it was your nervous system trying to feel safe in a world that rarely is. We don't fall for people. We fall into patterns, into hope, into the illusion of being understood without saying a word. And when someone looks at you just right, when they say something familiar, when they mirror your emotions or wounds or rhythm, it feels like destiny. But it's often trauma in disguise. Not every deep feeling is a deep connection. Some are echoes. Some are rehearsals. Some are survival. They didn't love you. They reflected you. Falling in love too fast is often the subconscious screaming, "Finally, someone who gets me." But Alan Watts reminds us, the more a thing tends to be permanent, the more it tends to be lifeless. Fast love feels alive, but often it's just fast. When you rush to love, you rush past reality. You see what you want to see, not what's truly there. Their silence becomes mystery. Their inconsistency becomes a test. Their distance becomes your mission. You create a storyline. You play a part. You cast them in a role they never agreed to. And then you wonder why it hurts so deeply when the illusion collapses. It's not that they broke your heart. It's that you gave them a heart that wasn't ready to be held. Love is not a rescue mission. When you fall in love too fast, you often aren't choosing the person. You're choosing the possibility, the potential, the fantasy of being loved in the way you were never loved before. And so, you project. You overattach. You chase closeness like it's oxygen. You confuse chaos with chemistry. You romanticize pain as passion. You confuse being needed with being loved. But real love doesn't start with desperation. It starts with awareness. When you love from a place of emptiness, you seek people who fill the void, not those who help you grow beyond it. Alan Watts warned, trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. When you chase someone to define you, to validate you, to prove your worth, you become addicted to the chase, not the connection. You don't need someone to save you. You need someone to meet you. The illusion of the one. There's a reason why you believe in soulmates. It gives structure to longing. It justifies your ache. It romanticizes your pain. But Watts would say, we are all as much extraordinary as we are ordinary. The myth of the one often hides the truth. You haven't made peace with your aloneness. So you look for someone to merge with, someone who makes you forget the ache, someone who becomes the escape from your own inner stillness. But this leads to panic, obsession, emotional whiplash. When they don't text back, you spiral. When they pull away, you chase harder. When they hurt you, you justify it, because losing them feels like losing air. But the truth is, you haven't lost them. You lost yourself in the idea of them. You loved the feeling, not the reality. You loved what it awakened in you, not necessarily who they were. You don't want love. You want relief. When you fall fast, it's often not love you crave. It's relief. Relief from loneliness. Relief from emptiness. Relief from feeling invisible. But love born from relief can become dependency. It puts pressure on the other person to regulate your pain, to always show up, to never disappoint. But no one can carry that weight forever. You become anxious. They become avoidant. You cling. They run. You suffer. And then you call it fate. But love is not relief. Love is presence. Love is the quiet knowing that you are enough, with or without someone in your arms. If you always fall fast, slow down. Before you fall again, ask, is this love or is it loneliness? Is this chemistry or is it coping? Do I truly know this person? Or do I just like how they make me feel? Because attraction is often familiarity. And if you grew up around inconsistency, silence, or emotional neglect, you will be drawn to people who repeat that pattern. Not because it feels good, but because it feels known. Alan Watts said, "This is the real secret of life. To be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now. And love requires that same presence. It's not about finding someone who completes you. It's about becoming someone who doesn't abandon yourself, even in the rush of connection. You can still believe in love, but don't rush it. This isn't a story against love. This is a reminder that love isn't found in fireworks. It's built in firewood, in the daily moments, in slow trust, in honest communication, in learning to be fully seen without rushing to impress or perform. You don't need to fall fast to prove you're capable of feeling deeply. Let love arrive slowly. Let it prove itself. Let it grow roots before it blooms. You deserve a love that isn't about saving you, but walking with you, A love that doesn't make you forget yourself, but helps you remember who you are. So if you've fallen fast before, don't shame yourself. You were trying to heal, but now you know better. And healing doesn't always look like holding on to someone. Sometimes it looks like holding on to yourself. And that's when real love begins.